we were talking earlier about life groups happening. And I want to tell you a little bit more about that because it has a lot to do with the message that we're talking about today. Life groups, what that's all about is, and let me just say this, groups are incredibly important to a church. And the reason groups are so important is because being in a row on Sunday is great, but there are benefits of being in a group that you will never experience on Sunday. Being in a row on Sunday is great. Let me say that again. Being in a row on Sunday, and it's vital. But you will never experience some of the things that you will experience in a group that you won't experience that in a row on Sunday. Or you won't, not to the level that you need to. Okay? Let me tell you what I'm talking about. Groups are a place where you will feel like you belong. Now, again, you can feel that here on a Sunday, right? But here's what happens. How many of you have ever been offended because the pastor forgot your name?
I have.
Yeah. You don't count. No, but you know what? That's something people get offended. Did you know that? People get offended when I don't... And you know what's hard is I forget people's names. I'm horrible. I really am. I'm horrible at that. In my last church, I had everybody wear name tags. Everybody wore name tags. I don't care how long they were there. Okay? I'm not kidding with you. We did. We had a whole row of name tags, and everybody had to grab it and put it on. I'm horrible. And people get offended by that. But here's the problem. You only have to remember one name. I got to remember 60 plus names and then guess. I got to remember their names, right? Because they get offended. They're like, hey, you didn't even remember my name. You know? That's hard. And here's the thing. You know what's funny? Is a lot of times you guys don't even remember each other's names. Right? I mean, if you've been here a while, you know, but, you know, especially the new people that come, right? You don't know. You forget. I remember at my last church I was there, this is one of the reasons why we did name tags, right? Because we'd have a guest come, and they'd be there for a couple weeks, right? And I'd forget their name. So I go up to one of my ushers or my leaders, and I say, hey, what's their name? Just, before I go up and greet them, because I don't want them to be offended. And they're like, I don't know. And I go to the next one, they're like, I don't know either. So this person's been here for a month and nobody knows who they are, and nobody goes up and talks to them because we're all afraid that we're going to have to remember their name, right? And it's too late. You can't go up now after like a month or two and go, hey, what's your name again? You know? You can't do that. So we said, forget it. We're all getting name badges. Everybody's going to wear them, right? Because that's what happens on Sunday. It's hard to remember people's names, especially this many people. And we're going to grow, guys. We're going to get bigger. Have you ever watched that show, Cheers? Yes. That song? It says a place. Let me see it here. Let me see. It says sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. Right? We all want to be somewhere where we feel like we belong. Where people know us, right? That's where we want to be. And that's the thing. You're not going to experience that on the level that you will. You're not going to experience that on Sunday morning like you will in a group. Because in a group, there's going to be 8 to 10 people, and they're going to know you. They're going to know your name. When you walk in the door, it's going to be like, Norm, right? Or whatever. They know who you are. You belong there. That's what it's all about. Another thing, groups are a place where you're cared for. How many of you have ever gone through just a tragedy or just a life upheaval where it just turned your life upside down, and you just wish you had somebody or some buddies that you could turn to and lean on during that time? Let me say this, if you haven't experienced that, you will. Because it's part of the cycle of life. We all go through those times. And we need people that we can lean on, people that care for us. But let's just say for a second, you're like, no, that's not me. Well, here, let me ask you this. Have you ever just needed some buddies to help you move? Right? Don't you just wish you had a group of people that would say, hey, yeah, Fred, let me come over and help you move? That's what groups are all about. Now, I know some of you are like, well, I'm not going to be part of a group now because I don't want to move anybody. Right? Especially if you have a truck, because everybody wants the guy with the truck to come help, right? But don't worry about that. We're not going to have that happen. I hope not, anyway. But that's the idea. That's what groups are about, to care for each other, right? To be there for each other. They provide that place where you know that you're cared for and you care for other people. Last thing I want to talk about as far as groups is groups provide a place of accountability. And we're going to go into that more through this message. But we all need a place where people have permission to speak into our life. We've all made dumb decisions, right? What if we had some friends, some people that actually would have thrown up a caution flag and said, wait a second, you're heading down the wrong road. You need to change direction. You see, that's what groups provide. It's an environment where people have permission to speak into your life and hold you accountable. Well, I want to talk about something that happens to many of us as we get older. And it happens to all of us, but it specifically happens to men. So I'm going to talk mainly to the men in the room, but ladies, please don't check out, because this is going to apply to you too. Okay? But something that happens to us is that we tend to drift towards isolation, independence, and autonomy. We tend to drift towards that. We want that, right? And here's kind of the reasons that we drift towards that isolation and that independence. Our heroes are the individualists, right? As we get older, we start looking back, we see these people, like the guy who built that app and then retired at age 25, right? And he's a millionaire. A billionaire, really, and he's living large. He's got 15 houses, and he can do whatever he wants. He doesn't have anything tying him down. I mean, we look at that, we're like, oh man, that's awesome. I wish I had built an app. Some of you don't even know how to use an app, right? But you're going, man, how come I didn't think of that app, you know? And you're going, man. Or maybe it's the artist who writes a song, 15 songs, and now he's living in a house with 15 cars, and you're like, man, look at that. Why didn't I do that? Why couldn't I have figured that out? And you hate him, but you want to be like him. And the reason you want to be like him is because you think about all the freedom that you would have. To be able to retire with all that money, you can go where you want, you can do what you want, you can hang out with who you want. You have so much freedom, so much autonomy. Right? I can just do what I want. And there's something else that kind of facilitates this drift toward isolation, independence, and autonomy. It's something, it definitely starts in our 30s, 40s, and 50s, and it's called, let's just call it the low-grade anger. You walk around angry all the time. Right? You're a grouch. Everybody's always asking, why are you so angry? And the reason you're so angry is because you're not that guy yet. You're not that guy that made that app or wrote those songs. You're not that guy. You haven't arrived. You haven't achieved that place of independence, of autonomy. Instead, your life seems like it's just speeding up, right? How many of you notice that? The older we get, the quicker the years seem to just fly by. And it makes it worse because now we're just going, man, my life's going faster and I haven't achieved what I was hoping to achieve. I'm not that person that I so wanted to be. And all of this together begins to build in us, and it builds this frustration and this disappointment. And that frustration and that disappointment begins to spill out towards the people that surround us, the people that are closest to us. And so for many of us, especially men, we resist the idea of being in a group. We resist. Do you know that men are the hardest people to get into small groups? because of this reason. We resist that. We resist the idea because it's hard to be in genuine community with other couples and other men without there being a little bit of jealousy, right? And that jealousy kind of isolates us and makes us resist being in a group. And then the fact that, we start having these thoughts of like, I'm not where I wanted to be. I'm not who I wanted to be. My life is going by so fast, and just all of it together just creates this frustration in us, and we just resist the idea of being in a group. I don't want to do that. I just want to be home. I just want to be by myself. I just want to plop in front of the TV or whatever and just forget about that. I don't want to deal with all that junk. I get that way sometimes. I'm serious, I do. I get that way, especially when I'm going through stuff. Man, I tend to isolate myself. When I go through stuff, I tend to isolate myself. I'm not naturally a people person. I think I've shared this with you before. I'm a shy person. I know it's weird because I'm up here, right, talking to like all these people. And I can talk to more people. I can talk in front of large groups of people. It's the Holy Spirit. I don't know how I can do it because I'm a shy person. When I walk into a room, I'm a wallflower, right? I'm shy. I'm just kind of standing there and kind of checking everybody out. I'm not outgoing. I'm really not naturally. And so it takes a lot out of me to be outgoing. So when I'm going through stress and everything, I isolate myself. When I have all that frustration, I just I need to get away. And I think a lot of us are similar to that. We go through this, whatever we're going through, we're frustrated, we're disappointed, whatever, and it's like we just want to be left alone. We just want to get away. But here's the thing. That isolation, that autonomy, they're unhealthy. They're dangerous for you. And I want to show you why I say that. I want to read you a Bible story that really illustrates how dangerous isolation and autonomy can be. And the story is King David. And you're going to recognize the story, even if you've never been in church and you're not a Christian, you're here today. Listen, you're going to recognize the story. It's David and Bathsheba, right? Everybody pretty much knows that story, right? That's like David's big shame, right? What happened between him and Bathsheba and all that mess. Everybody remembers that. Well, let me share the story. We're going to jump right in the middle, but let me say this. At this time in his life, King David is about 50 years old. He's about 50 years old. He's been the king for about 20 years. Okay? And this is what it says. In 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 2 through 4, we're going to jump right in, okay? And it says this: one evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful. And David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "Isn't this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" Then David sent messengers to get her. So let me start out by saying this. I want to give you some information. I want to give you some details so you can kind of set the stage for this thing. And that is, first off, who Bathsheba was. Now, a lot of people, when they, even pastors and even some scholars believe this, that Bathsheba was to blame, right? She was the slut. She was, showing her stuff and trying to get David's attention and all that. And we kind of paint her in that light. But here's the thing: there's a lot of scholars. I've learned this as I've studied this. There's a lot of scholars that don't necessarily think that. They don't think that she was doing anything wrong because she was bathing outside in a bathhouse, which was normal for that time. This particular bathhouse didn't have a roof on it. David's palace sits higher than everything else, right? So he had to be in a certain spot, and he had to look out at a certain time to see her bathing, right? It wasn't necessarily that everybody could see her, right? And it wasn't necessarily that she was to get his attention. She was just doing something normal. Here's the other thing. She comes from a very godly family. In fact, you see here it says that she's the daughter of Eliam. Eliam is the son of one of David's most trusted advisors. I believe his name is Ahithophel. In fact, later in the story, when things really go bad for David, it is this big problem that Ahithophel turns against David and joins his adversary in his son, who tries to steal the kingdom away from David. Now we kind of understand why he did it, right? Because of what David did to his granddaughter. You see, Bathsheba comes from a godly line. The Bible talks about Ahithophel's advice being as if it's the word of God. That's how good his advice was. And they were scared. The other side, David was scared when Ahithophel turned against him because he's like, I don't know that we can stand against it. This guy has tremendous wisdom. So many people believe what happened is that Bathsheba was forced into this situation because David was king. And if you know the rest of the story, and we're going to talk about it, so hang in there. But if you don't know, if you know the rest of the story, you know what David did to her husband. Right? So you can think about this in your mind. When the king calls you to his bedchamber, you probably feel like you don't have much of a choice in the matter. Right? You see, she didn't have any position of influence or power over David in order to speak into his life and say, hey, David, this is wrong. This shouldn't be done between you and I. He was the king. Think about this too. This wasn't a secret what was happening. I know later David tries to cover the whole thing up, which is kind of ridiculous because he sent servants to go get her. Right? Are those servants really going to be trustworthy? Right? Servants are going to talk to each other. They're going to talk to everybody, right? You know what King David did? Yeah, let me tell you, you know. I mean, they didn't have TV back then. All they had was gossip, right? Of course they're going to be talking about it. Everybody's talking about it. But here's the thing. Nobody's saying anything to David. Why? Because he's the king. You don't tell him no. You know, the servants can't go up and say, hey, Dave, I know you want me to go get her. I'm just making an assumption of what you want to do with her, but hey, that's not good, okay? You really shouldn't do that. You know what the king's going to say? You have two choices. You either go get her, or I got a headsman, you know, that can take care of this for you, you know? We can just, you know, take care of you right now, you know? I mean, that's the deal here. You see, they didn't have any kind of position, any kind of influence in David's life where they could talk to him and say, David, this is wrong. You need to stop. You need to stop what you're doing. But it gets worse than that. You see, not only was Bathsheba the daughter of godly men, but she was the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Now, Uriah is not any normal guy. He's actually one of David's top soldiers. They call these guys David's mighty men. And if you look at what these mighty men accomplished, some of them fought single-handedly against like entire armies. I mean, they were bad dudes, okay? Uriah was one of these guys. These were guys that fought and bled right next to David, right? There was a camaraderie. There was a bond. In fact, before David became David, or King David, Uriah the Hittite was right there with him. So they had a bond, a friendship. He was a trusted friend to David. But who could say no to David? Who could stand in front of David and say, no, stop. You're doing this, it's wrong. Nobody. So David sends for her. She spends the night with him. She gets pregnant. And he does what people do when they find themselves in trouble, especially men. He tried to control the outcome, right? And so he comes up with a plan. She ends up pregnant, so he goes, you know what? I got to keep this quiet. I don't want everybody to know, even though everybody already knew, the servants knew, I mean, you know, whatever. But he says, I got to control this, right? So he comes up with a plan. I'm going to send for her husband who's out fighting battles, right? Doing what he's supposed to do. I'm going to send for him and bring him back. And then he's going to sleep with his wife, and then he's going to assume that he's the father, right? Problem solved. So he does. He calls for Uriah to come to the palace. And Uriah comes, and he's like, what am I doing here? And David's like, oh, I just want to hear how things are going in the battle. And he's like, well, you have messengers, right? I mean, come on, you know, why am I here? But he's like, just tell me what's going on. And Uriah's like, hey, we're doing a good job. Things are good. And he's like, okay, hey, why don't you head home, wink, wink, right? Head home and, you know, have fun and, hey, you know, you're doing a good job. And so Uriah's like, all right, whatever, and he goes, but he doesn't go home. You know what he does? He goes and he sleeps at the guard shack with the guards that are protecting David. You see, at this moment, Uriah is a better man than David is. He's like, I can't enjoy my home life while my brothers are out there fighting. I can't do that. And so he sleeps at the gatehouse. So the next morning, David wakes up and finds out he didn't go home. And he's like, oh, this knucklehead. You know, and he's like frustrated. So he goes, okay, you know what, new plan. I'm going to get him drunk and then send him home. Right? Because drunk guys get frisky, right? I don't know. It's just, I don't understand it, but that's how it works, I guess. So he does. He invites him to dinner, he gets him drunk, and then he kind of just says, hey, go home, right? Home, wife, you know, go for it, right? And so he sends him home. And you know what? Uriah does the same thing. He sleeps in the gatehouse. David is flipped out at this point. He's just like, you know what? This guy, he's done. All right? So he goes like this. He calls Uriah in and he says, listen, here's a note for you to give to Joab, the commander of the army. And what he does, what's in the note, is Uriah's death warrant. David commands Joab, the commander of the army. He says, listen, I want you to put him at the front of the line, front of the army, and then when the battle gets really tough, I want you guys to just step back and leave him all alone. So he gets killed. Second Samuel 11:15, this is what it says. In it he wrote, put Uriah in the front line where the fighting is fiercest, then withdraw from him, so he will be struck down and die. Now think about this. What can Joab do at this point? David's the king. Even though he has had relationship with David, and he can probably talk to David at this point, when he's out away from David, he doesn't have access, right? And David has given him a command. King David has given him a command, and there's nothing he can do. So Uriah dies. After the funeral, David brings Bathsheba home and marries her, you know, tries to make it seem like it's just kind of, oh, hey, how about if we get married? You seem, you know, you're a widow, and I've already got several wives, but hey, why not another one, right? And hey, you know, oh, she got pregnant. Well, what do you know? It happened really quickly, you know? No big deal, right? Outcome control. But the problem is that everybody knew what happened. It wasn't a secret. The palace servants knew. In fact, his children probably knew. David lost all credibility, all moral authority over his children. Moral and credibility with his children. Think about this for a minute. They grew up hearing the stories about David, right? The mighty man of God. The guy God chose to be king over King Saul because David was a man after God's own heart. They grew up hearing the stories of how David killed Goliath, the giant Goliath, because God was with him. They grew up hearing how David wrote 2/3 of the Psalms that are in the Bible, the worship Psalms. David was a mighty man of God, a man of integrity, and now this. And you know what happened? He lost all credibility with his children. It got so bad. I mean, he couldn't even discipline them at one point. They were doing all kinds of stuff, and he couldn't, because you know what? Every time he looked at them, it was like, hey, son, you need to stop doing that. They're like, yeah, Dad, why don't you tell me again how I should stop doing this? You know what? Tell me the story about Uriah. Tell me that story, Dad. I'm tired of hearing about Goliath and all that. I want to hear about Uriah and Bathsheba, Dad. Why don't you tell me that story? Why don't you tell me how she got pregnant so fast? Tell me again. How did that work? How did Uriah die again, Dad? You see, he lost all credibility with his children because of his stupid mistake. Outcome not in control. He thought he was okay. He thought he had everything covered, but really, he didn't. Everybody knew, including his children. And he lost their respect. But guys, here's the part I want to get to. 2 Samuel 12:1 says this. The Lord sent Nathan to David. The Lord sent Nathan to David. Nathan was a prophet. If you don't know what a prophet is, it's a messenger from God. God would give a message to the prophet, and then the prophet would then deliver that message to whomever God wanted to hear that message. And in this instance, it was David, King David. Nathan got a message from God, and then Nathan was supposed to go to the king and deliver that message. Why did God send Nathan? God sent Nathan because no one had access to David. David was isolated. Everybody around him was getting a paycheck. Everybody around David couldn't stand up and say something. David didn't have anyone around him who had access and permission to speak into his life and hold him accountable. So God had to send somebody from the outside because David was isolated. He didn't have anybody on the inside. When we become inaccessible, like David, do we make better decisions or worse decisions? When we become isolated, like David, do we make better decisions or worse decisions? We make terrible decisions, right? God sent the one outsider who could get to David. The one man who wasn't afraid to tell David how it was. So King David, who killed Goliath, who was a man after God's own heart, makes a terrible decision because he was inaccessible. So God sent Nathan. And here's what Nathan said to him, 2 Samuel verse 12, 1 through 4. He tells him a story. I love this. Here's the story. The Lord sent Nathan to David. When he came to him, he said, there were two men in a certain town, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb he had bought. He raised it, and it grew up with him and his children. It shared his food, drank from his cup, and even slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him. Now a traveler came to the rich man, but the rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveler who had come to him. Instead, he took the ewe lamb that belonged to the poor man and prepared it for the one who had come to him. So Nathan tells him the story. Now here's the thing. This story has significance for David because David started out as a poor little shepherd boy, right? He knows what it's like to have a little lamb and feel like it's one of your family, one of your, a valued pet, right? He knows what that's like. And he knows what it's like to be poor. So he relates to this story. David's flaming mad. He is ticked off. He's ready to kill this guy, this rich guy, right? This is what it says. So he's ready to kill this guy, and he's like seething mad. But then Nathan does something. He lowers the boom on David. And this is what happens. This is what he says. David burned with anger against the man and said to Nathan, "As surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this deserves to die. He must pay for that lamb 4 times over because he did such a thing and had no pity." Then Nathan said to David, "You are the man. Why did you despise the word of the Lord by doing what is evil in his eyes? You struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword and took his wife to be your own. You killed him with the sword of the Ammonites." Then David said to Nathan, "I have sinned against the Lord." David made a huge mistake. Every one of us has the potential to make that same kind of mistake and pay the price that we may never recover from. Do you know that David would never recover his family? You see, God forgives him, but there is a difference between forgiveness and consequences. You see, forgiveness is simple, especially in the New Testament, right? It's simple. It was costly. It cost Jesus his life, right? But it doesn't cost us to be forgiven. But consequences, they are here in most instances, or in many instances, to stay. We have to continue to deal with the consequences of our sin. You see, God forgave David, but the consequences were severe. The baby dies. David's kids do all kinds of rebellious, sinful things, and David has no control. He can't discipline them. He's lost their respect. He can't do anything. Because his children had lost all respect for him, one of his sons literally steals the kingdom from him. Convinces the kingdom that David is not a good king and he would make a better king, and he steals the kingdom from him. It's horrible. David ends up having to go to war against that son to get the kingdom back. It's horrible because who's going to tell David no? Right? Who's going to tell him no? He had nobody. He was inaccessible. There was nobody on the inside that could say, "David, what you're about to do is going to ruin your family. It's going to ruin your life." He was isolated. The whole way this began, I want to show you what I've been talking about. The way this whole thing began is found in the first verse of chapter 11. This is the answer to Nathan's question to David. Nathan asked the question, "Why did you do this evil?" And here it is in the first verse. It says, "In the springtime, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem." You see, David got into trouble because he isolated himself from the community of men to whom he was the most accessible. You see, when men go off to war together, they have bonds that they form with each other, right? In fact, for kings, it was probably the one place where a king was the most accessible, where the people who were fighting alongside him could actually talk and speak into his life. In fact, you'll see this if you read the whole story of David. You'll see many times his men his fighting men, they actually can speak to him. They'll actually stand up to him. Joab himself, later in the story, does. He says, hey, wait, that's not a good idea. But you see, David isolated himself from the one group of people that could hold him accountable. The one group of people that had access to him and who could speak into his life and stand up to him, and he would listen. And in the moment when David should have made a decision that kept him in community with the group to whom he was the most accountable and the most accessible, David chose to stay home. I don't do that anymore. I'm not going to war. War's for the little people. War's for the younger people. War's for the other guy. I'm going to stay home. And here's the thing. This is the decision that a lot of men make, but a lot of us make, even ladies. We make this decision when it's an opportunity, whether it's to go to a life group or whether it's just to surround yourself with people that can speak into your life. Instead of doing that, you stay home. You isolate yourself. And now there's nobody in your life that can stand up to you and say, hey, wait a second. You're walking down the wrong path. You need to change direction. You're heading towards disaster. We can't have the same attitude as David, because if we do, we'll pay for it. If no one has access to you, if no one has access to your heart, if no one has access to the details of your life, eventually you're going to do something stupid. We need people in our life who will stand up to us and say what we need to hear. So let me ask you, who has access to you? Are you isolated? You see, isolated doesn't mean being alone. David wasn't alone. He had plenty of servants. He had plenty of people. He had plenty of wives. You see, no one had access to him. No one had any kind of influence in his life where they could say, David, what you're doing is wrong. You need to stop. Are you intentionally surrounding yourself with people who have permission to speak into your life? Permission to call you on stuff? Listen, we were made for community. We weren't made to be autonomous. We're launching those life groups with the purpose of creating environments where these kind of relationships can develop. That's what we want. We want these kind of relationships where people can hold you accountable and you can hold them accountable, because we need that. But here's the thing. Whether you join a life group or whether you just surround yourself with people that have access to you, people that have permission to speak into your life, that's what you need to do. You need to surround yourself. Listen, let me share something with you. I have an accountability partner. I talk to them almost every week. He's a great guy. One day I hope you'll meet him. He moved to Arkansas, but he used to live here, but now he moved to Arkansas. But we talk on the phone almost every week. We've been doing that for, it's been probably 15 years. He has permission to call me on things. And I have that permission back with him. When we first got together and decided to do this, we basically opened up our entire life. Every deep, dark secret that we had, we shared it. And just opened up and said, because we knew, if we didn't, if we held back, then we weren't really being transparent and open with each other. So we shared everything, and then we said, we each had permission to talk to each other, to speak into each other's life, to hold each other accountable. I have programs on my phone, on my computer, that whatever I look at, especially if it's inappropriate, it sends an email to my wife and an email to him. Yeah. Because why? Because I want to be accountable. There is so much on the internet that you can get in trouble with, right? And so I want to be accountable. And so he has permission. One time, I'm going to share this. I saw this article, right? And it was all about how was Scarlett Johansson was going to auction off a date with herself on eBay. And I'm like, what? That is so weird. How would that work? You know? How would a starlet like her, I mean, think about the crazies that would like give their left arm to do that, you know? And so how would she go on a date? So I was trying to figure that out. So I clicked on it to look at the details, right? I wasn't interested, okay? I swear to you, I was not interested. I just was curious. And shut up. I was just curious, so I'm looking, reading through the description, right? And sure enough, there's these stipulations, like there has to be this chaperone and stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Because I'm like, there's no way. And I want to see if it was real. The next week, I get a call from him, and he's like, hey, what's going on? I see this email that you looked at this site about Johansson and Dave and stuff. And I'm like, what? No, it's not like that. I'm like, no, I swear. And he's like, same thing that you guys just did. He's like, I'm like, please believe me. I swear, I don't even care about her. But that's what it's like. He has permission. He called me right away. When he got that, he called me. He's like, hey, what's going on? What's going on? And he was ready to, to get serious about this. And I told him, I said, no, it's not. That's not what it was about. I was just curious, and I clicked on it. And Ushers. Whatever code, green, whatever it is. Code red, right over there.
It's called code accountability.
Yeah, but that's what we need. We need people that are going to hold us accountable. People that are going to tell us when we're doing something wrong. They're going to speak into our lives. But here's the thing. We tend to isolate ourselves. No, I'm not going to go to that life group. I'm going to stay home.
Yes.
I'm going to watch TV.
Yes.
I'm not going to build relationships with people so that they can hold me accountable and I can hold them accountable. No.
Yes.
I'm going to stay home.
Yes.
I don't feel like being in a group. You know what? Here's the thing. You may not feel like it, but that doesn't mean you don't need it.
Yes.
We can't simply go by our feelings. We got to go based on what we need. I don't always like talking to my accountability partner. I'm busy. He's the same way. We're like, man, I'm swamped, but I know I need to.
Yeah.
And so we talk to each other. And then afterwards, we feel better. We're like, man, I can't believe I almost didn't call you, I needed to call you. I didn't even realize I needed it. We need people in our life that will hold us accountable.